Hey guys, welcome back. It is a little bit hard to imagine, but Stage 3 is almost here upon us, and in this video I wanted to go through and cover some of the biggest storylines as we approach the first week of matches. As you guys are watching this video, the first week of matches are now only 1 day away. So with that, there's a lot to go through. There are a lot of things that have changed, so I want to cover them all. And with that, let's go ahead, let's hop into the first one, which is the one that I might be most excited for, and that's that the map Standoff is back. If you have not played Standoff, it is equally as good. I think I personally like it a little bit more than Raid, but it is just a tremendous map. It plays on hardpoint very, very well. It'll be interesting to see how Control plays there. I'm not sure if it'll make it into its way into a Control map, but SND, it plays really well, and hardpoint is just absolutely phenomenal. I think I did a review of Standoff on my channel like months ago. I'll have to go back and look, but Standoff is absolutely incredible. I hope we get to see it in the rotation sometime soon. More so about the CDL, we also have some roster moves. So as this tweet here from London says, the West Coast connection just got stronger. We're excited to announce that Zaptius will be joining us for Stage 3. So they're keeping Shawnee, Paul X, and Zed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there from London's point of view. I do like the fact that a lot of orgs this year are not sitting back and just playing their cards tight to the chest. I like the fact that they're out there, they're being aggressive, they're making changes where they feel like they need to make roster changes. And we've seen so far over the first two stages that a lot of those moves have started to pay off. Think about the impact that somebody like Insight has had on Toronto, like Standy has had over the last month with Minnesota. So these teams are making changes, and it seems to be paying off for them. Of course, Zaptia is joining his former teammate from Wester, Paul X. We'll see how that goes, but I expect them to play pretty well as we head into Stage 3. Another interesting note, which I'm not real positive if this one is true. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but CDL Intel did tweet that there's a very high chance Vivid will no longer be starting for LAG. He said it's unclear who would take his place, but likely a player from their academy team. And if this is true, to me, this is just absolutely bananas. They have been, I mean, yes, they didn't have a great major in Major 2, but it definitely was not Vivid's fault. He was not the reason why they were not successful. If we go through and are to actually look at their stats overall, some of what we'll see will also be backed up by that. So if we just look at LAG stats, this can be found on breakingpoint.gg. But if we're looking at hardpoint and you're looking at like overall KD and stuff like that, sure, his KD has not been great. But if we look at kills per 10 minutes, he is leading his squads. If we look at the number of engagements that he's in per 10 minutes, he's leading his squad. So KD does not tell all of the story, but he's just been that player that's super consistent for them. If we look down in Search and Destroy, again, always, of course, you can look at overall SND KD, which doesn't tell all of the story. He does have a 0.95, but he is playing that aggressive role. If you look at first blood rate, he is the highest on their squad. Look at engagements per 10 or engagements per round again. He's leading them there. So I don't know. This would be very interesting to me. I'm not really sure that I would be 1,000% on board with this move. But if they just figured, you know what, we didn't have the best of performances in Stage 2 and we have to make a move, if this is one of them, then it is what it is. Teams will make moves. Moving on, of course, this will be interesting to see how it plays out. There will be weapon tuning happening over the course of the next day or so with the drop. This actually comes about 24 hours before the next drop of the next season, but they do say in here there's a lot of things that'll be tuned. But as I look at this, of course, LMGs and FFAR and stuff like that, there's also things that apply to Warzone. But if we're looking here, the Krig is being altered, so we'll see what happens to the Krig. That has become the AR of choice to a lot of main ARs in the CDL, so we'll see if the Krig stays or if they end up using something else. Also, all assault rifle barrel attachments are getting an update, so we'll see how much that hurts those. And then SMG sprint speed and more. So until the full patch notes come out, we don't entirely know what details are going into each of these weapons, but it will be interesting to see how that affects the AR selection as we head into the third stage. Of course, we also have changes to game modes like control. I like this. I'm not sure if I like it more than how it was, at least the proposed alteration to control just before this, but essentially, whoever gets overtime, it used to be based off of kills, right? So if Optic is playing Dallas and it ends up going to a round 5, and if Optic has 42 kills and Dallas has 39 kills, then Optic would get defense. Well, now that's changing into overtime will be based off of ticks captured. So you know how like if you're playing raid control, you can go over, you can capture A, and maybe you get one tick towards B. Well, that'll be counted towards who gets defense in round 5 if it ends up going that far. There was a proposed change to control that said extra times will only be added when the full point is captured, not per tick captured. So there was a proposed change where each time you get a tick, that adds time to how much round time you have left in that round. So I don't know how I feel like if there's 3 ticks, well, if you capture 1 tick, maybe that gives you an extra 20 seconds or an extra 15 seconds or something like that. That is something that didn't end up going through, but it would have been interesting to see how that ended up playing out, or how that would have ended up playing out over the course of the Stage 3 Major. Either way, I do think that this is a positive change, and I like the fact that they're willing to continue to make changes to these game modes, even as, you know, the league season goes on and on. Next thing, we don't touch on challengers all that much, but these were the teams in North America that made it to the Elite Season number 3. And as we look through, the only reason why I wanted to bring this up is just because a lot of the people mentioned here were part of teams, pro teams last year. So just as you go throughout the very first team, and I think my camera's in the way, but right here you have Slacked and Method. So they made it into Elite Season 3. You also have John here, and Gravity is one of those players from the original Wester that hasn't gotten a chance yet. So it'll be interesting to see if he also finds his way onto a squad. Also, this next team, Kismet, GodRx, Pander, obviously Kismet last year with Paris, GodRx alongside Minnesota, and Pander on Seattle. Those were 3 people that we saw throughout last year. You have just pros littered throughout these. You had Spart on LAG last year, also Saints. We continue to go down. Major Maniac we've seen as recently as a month ago with Minnesota. General squad is still standing heavy or standing true here with their roster. You have LAG's squad here, so their academy squad, and the most interesting of these, which I'm really happy for Haggy here because of the way that he got dropped just less than 24 hours before the qualifying for this series, but Parasite did end up making it through with his new squad, so sometimes that's just how karma works out. But I wanted to go through and just cover these rosters because a lot of the pros that we saw last year are still having an impact on the scene, and they're still there for us to follow. So those guys are there, of course. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to cover is just kind of how the groups are playing out overall. I did do a breakdown video of the groups on my channel. If you haven't seen that, go check that out also. But when it comes to these 2 groups, I feel like, and this could be totally wrong just based off of how even last stage went, but if we look at Group A, I would expect these 3 teams to be the teams that are right now the top 3 in that group. Now, who knows what happens with Florida, because now Havoc is back in their roster, so they could pick up momentum. LAG has proven in the past that they're not exactly just a walkover, but they didn't have a great Stage 3. And then, of course, we know the struggles that Paris went through with the major. So right now, I think those are the top 3 teams, but there's so many things that can change from a week-to-week basis. The biggest storyline as I look at the groups right here is with Group B. I think far and away, Atlanta and Optic are the 2 better teams in Group B. I would expect them to make it out. Then from there are a ton of storylines with the other 4 teams in this group. Of course, LA, Thieves adding Draza, they looked really good, had a nice kind of mini run through the elimination bracket of the Stage 2 Major. It'll be interesting to see how the roster moves end up treating New York Subliners. Again, they're another team that fizzled out of the Stage 2 Major, didn't put forth their best effort the last time that we saw them. One of the graphics that we seem to have seen almost every time we saw Seattle play is how much they improved from Stage 1 to Stage 2. They really are a much more dangerous squad than they were in Stage 1. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue their progression. And then, of course, Zapti is coming in for London Royal Ravens. How will that affect their squad? So up above, I feel like things are just kind of holding true to how they were at the end of the second major. Underneath at Group B, I think you have the two teams that are clearly the best. And then right now, I'm not entirely sure who I would pick as that number 3 team out of Group B. Would it be LA because of how good they looked, LA Thieves, how good they looked during the Stage 2 Major in their mini losers bracket run? Would you put Seattle there? NYSL, they did not look good at all in the Stage 2 Major, but they've shown how dangerous they can be. So a lot of storylines here. Last but not least, I do want to go through and just take a peek at the schedule starting tomorrow. So as we look at these, you have 2 matchups, Dallas versus Paris, Toronto versus Florida. I expect Dallas and Toronto to be the sides that come out and get wins in those first 2 matchups. We'll see if Toronto can continue to be as dominant as they were in the Stage 2 Major. As we look at Saturday, we have Paris versus LAG. That is a super important matchup because if either of those teams have aspirations of making it into the winner's bracket from their group, this is one that you have to win. Right now, I don't really have a ton of confidence in either of these squads, but I'm going to go Paris. Same as what I just said about Paris versus LAG also holds true for Minnesota versus Florida. If your team here, if you're Minnesota or Florida and you have aspirations of being in the winner's bracket, you have to win this. I think Minnesota gets it done. And then I think Chicago beats Seattle. But again, I'm interested to see, especially with these 2 matches right here, how close they end up being, because we all know that Florida is a squad that can be dangerous. And of course, Seattle looks better and better over time. If we look at the Friday schedule, I realize I just went Thursday to Saturday. My mistake. But looking at Friday, we have LA Thieves versus Seattle, another just massive matchup when it comes to winner's bracket implications. I'm going to go with LA Thieves here, but if Seattle does win, they absolutely deserve it. Optic versus London. I expect London to be better, but I don't think that they're going to be able to beat Optic. And then that leaves us with our Sunday schedule, LA Thieves versus London. I do want to see London get a victory. I'm just not quite sure that they're yet, especially with their new roster. Atlanta probably going to take this one over New York, but we'll see if New York is competitive. And then last but not least, by far the marquee matchup for the first weekend, you have Toronto versus Dallas. And to me, it'll just depend on what Toronto team you get. Insight has looked great. Cammy and Kleenex are the 2 that are most consistent for them. I said this on the Minnesota Rocker pre-show, and I'll say it again here. They go as far as Bance takes them because you expect Insight, Cammy, and Kleenex to all play well. But where they're most dangerous is when Bance come out and plays very well. So if he's able to win most of his engagements and most of his matchups, then I think that they'll do well. But if not, then things could be in trouble for them. So I am going to go Toronto here, but I'm interested to see if they can continue to ride that wave that they had from the Season 2 Major. And with that, those are the main storylines as we're about to head into Week 1 of the Stage 3 season. Down below in the comments, let me know how you guys feel about all the things that we brought up. I look forward to hearing your conversations and getting back to you down in the comments below. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and with that, thank you guys so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.